Looks like I'm live. I'm not sure though. I'll wait for a comment that says the audio's working and everything. All right, cool. Some people. So I'm gonna do today. I'm doing a tools, not tutorial. I'll show you the tools that I like to use and some of my favorite stuff, and I'll go through that at a fairly quick pace so we can get to. I'll answer some of your questions and then I'll do some drawing because I know that's seems to be people's favorite part is the actual drawing. So I didn't want to do. I was just originally gonna do just tools and show you the tools I used, but it seemed like people really wanted a drawing aspect to it. So we'll do kind of a mix of different things today. And the first thing I want to do is show you kind of my setup here because people had asked me that. And the reason I'm doing tools is because that's the question I get asked by far the most is what pen are you using, or when people see a time-lapse video, they want to know what the tools I'm using are. And so I wanted to answer that question for people and show them exactly what I'm using and tell you a little bit about why I like the specific tools. I will say it's funny because I'm the same way. Like, I stink at watercolor, but I love watercolor, and so I would look at these people like Felix Scheinberger or other artists that are just amazing watercolor artists, and I would look for interviews with them online and so that I could find out like what watercolors are they using, because I must be using the wrong watercolors. And then I would go out and get the watercolor that I learned that they were using and brought it home, and it turned out that it wasn't the watercolors, it was me. And so just because you get a tool that an artist that you like is using, it doesn't mean you'll automatically be able to draw just like them. It's definitely the user more than the tool. But having said that, there are definitely some better tools than others, and some tools have pros and cons, and so we'll go over that a little bit. Okay, having said that, I'm going to switch to this other camera, and this will just be for a second because I know shaky camera is no fun for anyone. But I want to show you around a little bit because my studio is really pretty small, and you see behind me is like a bureau. That's my wife's bureau. We only have a 2-bedroom place, so we have a bedroom, and then this is like my studio and kind of her closet at the same time, right? And so let's see if I can do this. If you move around, you can see there's where you come in. This is the bookshelf, which I actually have a brand new bookshelf, which is like twice as big. That's going to take up this whole wall. Come around to my laptop and my desk that I work at, and we've got a printer, the window, moving back around. There's my record player, and we're done. That's it. That's a tour of my really tiny studio. Put that back. So that's set now. No more shaky cam. I know that's miserable for people. We'll go to this. That way I can, let's see, which camera am I on? That way I can talk to you and I can show you the tools here. And that'll be good. So I'll start with some papers that I like to use, or some sketch pads that I like to use. Let's see, make sure this is centered right. So this is the absolute best mixed media paper. I highly recommend it. It's B Paper Company Super Deluxe Mixed Media, and I don't have sponsors. I'm not getting paid for any of this. These are just the tools I like to use. And this is an empty pad, but this paper will hold like pretty much anything. It'll hold wet mediums. It'll hold multiple layers of wet mediums. It's about as close to watercolor paper as you can get, but it's still a little bit thinner than that. So this is definitely the highest quality mixed media paper I've ever used, and it's it's a little pricey. And another thing about this company is they're actually going through, I think they sold the company to another company, and so right now this paper is very hard to find, even online. But they're going to get distribution soon, and so it'll be easier to find again. As soon as you can, I would highly recommend this paper. And then for little sketch pads, I use these little sketch pads that are, let's see if I can get that right, Travelogue Handbook by Global Arts Materials. They're just little sketchbooks that I use, and the cool thing about them is I put a piece of printer paper in here so you could see, but they're off-white. So this isn't, piece of printer paper. You can see how white it is. These are nice off-white. And then so you could use like some white pen or white, acrylic marker, and you can get a contrast of white off of this off-white, and it looks nice. So that's the type of papers I like to use. I am going to move on to pens, because this is definitely the tool that I use the most, and I use a pretty good mixture of pens. Sorry about the noise. And I'll show you. Should have been probably set up for this. And I don't have a Copic liner right now. I just ordered some. So these, I'll save the high quality pens for the end. And I'll start lowest quality. This is a Micron pen. I hardly ever use this pen. It's pretty much the worst pen that I own, and I only use it when I need like a colored pen. So I have like a brown one and a purple one that I can't find this color in a different pen, so I use it. But some people love Microns. I just don't think they're that great. I think that they're just kind of blah. I can't explain why I don't like them. I like a really wet pen that leaks and that you can accidentally smudge really easily, and they're just not that. If you're looking for a cheap pen that is pretty good quality, is the light on? Oh, it was, okay. If you're looking for like a cheap pen that's good quality, I'm sorry I'm not really looking at the camera. I've got too many cameras going, I noticed that. Anyway, so these are Uniball pens, and these pens you can get for like $2 at most art stores, or you can get a package of them for, $10 or $20. And they're roller pens, and they're nice. They're wet, and they have different colors. They do have like red and blue ones, and they actually have like almost every color in these pens. And then this is also a Uniball roller. It's just a little bit of a wider tip. And so these pens are really nice pens for the price. But now I'm going to get to the good pens. Not that Uniball's not good. I use those pens a lot, like a real lot. But these pens, this is the pen that I would recommend if you're going to splurge and you can only afford one good quality art supply, and then the rest you're going to buy cheap. This is what I would spend money on. I would get a fountain pen. And my personal favorites are Pelican Fountain Pens and Lamy Fountain Pens. And this is a Lamy 2000. This is actually, I don't remember the name of this Pelican Fountain Pen. I don't know if I have the box up here. I can't remember. Let's see. Everything's gonna fall. That's the box it came in. But they might not say the name of it, because this might be just a booklet that comes with any of their fountain pens. Anyway, these fountain pens are really great, and you can get different nibs. So this nib here it's slanted and it's wide, so you can get a nice thick line. You can also turn it this way and get a thinner line, so as you're going, I don't know if I have the camera close enough to really get an idea, but these pens have such a nice varied line weight to them as you're moving them, depending on which way you move them. And they're really, really wet, and you can fill them. So these are like as close you're going to get to dipping pens in ink without having to keep dipping. And that's what I like about these, is they offer a very similar feel to a dip pen, but you don't have to keep dipping, which kind of ruins your flow. And so that's why I really like them. And the Pelican and the Lamy are pretty much similar in quality. It's just a matter of preference. I prefer probably the Lamy if I had to choose out of those two. And I'll fill, actually the Pelican pen needs to be filled, and so I can show you how you would fill these pens. And I use Lamy ink. This is I should put the cap on before I do this. This ink is cool because it has like this little roll of paper inside of it, and then you just rip a piece off, and then when you fill the pen you can use that to wipe the excess ink. And so to fill these, let's see if I can get this right, you just unscrew that, and then you dip the nib, so I'll unscrew it, and then you just dip the nib in the ink and then screw it back in while it's in there, and it sucks up that ink into the chamber. And then you use this little piece of paper to wipe the extra ink off. And now that's filled. And this is a pen I'm probably going to use for the drawing, the main part of the drawing that I'm going to do in a few minutes here. All right. And so if you have a pen and paper that you want to grab and draw along with me, that'd be great. If not, you can just watch, whatever you want to do. So I did pens, I did paper. What else do I want to do? I'm going to throw these off to the side here. These are great. So these are acrylic marker pens. They're really thick. Let's see if I can get the cap off. This one's a little dried out, I think. Newer one, maybe. There we go. So these are nice and thick. And oh, this one's more dried out than that one. When these are new, I'm not going to be able to show you. When these are new, there we go. You can see you can get like some really cool stuff on the edges where it's like a little bit dry, and depending on how hard you push and how much you shake to get some ink to it, you can get some really nice texture with these. You can fill in large areas of black very quickly with these, and they're water-based acrylic paint markers. And so I use those quite a bit. I like this nice this white one, especially on that off-white paper, because you can put big areas of white for contrast. I also have a red one. So I use the red, white, and blacks of these acrylic markers. They're expensive, so I generally just get those three colors to use. Let's see. What else do I want to show you that I like? Oh, let's do watercolor next. And so I'll tell you what I'm talking about, because I mentioned watercolor earlier. So this Koi watercolor is like one of the first watercolors I started using and painting with, and you can see it's pretty well used. And they come with these paint brushes that you can actually fill up with water. So you don't need to dip them in a side thing. You can just squeeze them a little bit and get some water out, which is nice. And I started looking up what other watercolors other artists were using, and this Schminky, I guess, I don't even know how you pronounce that, is a really high-end watercolor that everyone recommended, and so I bought it. I hardly ever even use it. It's really nice. It feels nice, and you can tell the quality's there, but I didn't notice any big difference between the two. And this is like $15 for the Koi and like $80 for this. And for the minimal amount of difference, I would say the Koi is well worth buying. Like, I wouldn't spend the extra money on this if I were gonna do it again. And I have bigger. Let's see. I have a few more of these Koi watercolors that are larger, and have more colors. And then I have another one that's got different colors in this, so this is a great watercolor for the price. Hold on. Yeah, and the Uniball does have, someone's commented that the Uniball does give them some nice line variation. I definitely agree with that. I think that for the price of a Uniball, well worth it. I always have these ink pads, in like stamp pads, and I'll use them. Sometimes I'll just like dip the side of my finger in it and smudge on the page, for different effects. So if I want to put some texture somewhere, and I also generally, I'm trying to look, see what I have. I generally have stamps too, certain like date stamps and other things that I can use to put in drawings. But having these, one of these or two of these, maybe a different color too, around is not a bad idea. I use this Elmer's No Wrinkle Glue in my collage tutorial not that long ago. This is the best glue out there for doing, if you're just going to use like a glue for collage. Obviously, if you use like Mod Podge or other things, they're potentially a better fit. But if you want glue and you want something that's easy and cheap, use this No Wrinkle Glue, because as we all know, when you glue the back of things, and especially if what you're gluing is like a thinner paper, it's going to dry and it's going to wrinkle the paper and it's going to look terrible. And so that's why, and this stuff really does work. Like I haven't had any issues with it wrinkling, even with really thin paper. And so I'll just go into some pencils and some crayons and stuff that I use, and then we'll get right into some drawing. So pencils, I have this box here that I use. These are great. These Windsor Newton charcoal pencils. Like they have sanguine ones too. I think that's how you pronounce it. And they come in packs with different darknesses, and so I highly recommend these pencils for drawing pencils. They're great for shading too, if you want to use the sides of them. And then I also like these Sanguine France Conte de Paris, or Conte et Paris. I don't know how to pronounce any of this stuff, but I like to use them. And then let's see, I also use these Generals charcoal pencils all the time, and they have different thicknesses, and this is a soft one. They have hard. The soft ones are nice. They are a nice darker black. So those are my favorite pencils. I have a few other pencils in here that I use, but those are definitely the ones I use the most. As far as like colored pencils and crayons and markers and that type of stuff, markers, I guess Prismacolor and Copic. I think Prismacolors are my favorite out of all of them. They have a nice brush on the end, and I'm trying to make sure I keep this centered so you can see what I'm doing. And then I also like to use them right until they're like, let's see if I can put that close to the camera. You see that brush is like totally trashed, and the ink is, or I don't know if you would call it ink, but marker juice is almost out, but you can still get some color out. So I like to just experiment with different things. And if a marker that's almost out is not a dead tool to me, I'll still use it. Like some people would throw this away, but I'll find a use for a dried up marker in something. As far as colored pencils and crayons, honestly, like they do have high quality colored pencils and high quality crayons. I don't feel that there's a huge difference between like a low end crayon and a high end one. Some people, if you use these all the time, you probably would disagree with that. It's just not something I use a lot in my work. It's something I might use for a splash of color here and there. And so that's why I'm not that picky with which colored pencils I'm using. I guess this is Nicole, and then I have some Prismacolors, and then I also have some that are like really cheap ones that I got at CVS, right? So it doesn't really matter to me. And then finally, I have these boxes or not boxes. This is made, it's like something from Thailand that's supposed to be made for like a lunch. You might put like some vegetables in one and steamed rice in another, but I just use it for holding art tools. And so I put pastels in here and chunks of oil sticks, and then in this one I have like different charcoals and different vines, and so I just have a mixture of stuff that I kind of have at my disposal. This is like, what I've showed you is basically all the tools I use. There's not too many tools that I would use that I didn't cover, so that's it. I mean, it's really not much, and I think like staying with a minimal amount and is probably best, because then you can start getting good at using the specific tools instead of having like a huge overwhelming amount of stuff. Maybe some of you thought that was too much even, but I think that it's probably best to limit yourself and get good with the mediums that you're using, rather than having like an abundance or a ridiculous amount, right? So let me see. Did anyone have questions? I'm like off camera. I'm like looking at my iPad, so I am off camera for a second. My tools are like kind of organized. Like I try to keep like my pencils in one box and my pens in another box, as you can see. But as I draw, they kind of get scattered, and then I'll reorganize them every few days. And then another question was about what do I use to set things? So depends. If it's like a sketchbook or something like that, I don't even bother setting it. The charcoal might smudge a little. It doesn't really bother me. If it's something that someone wants to buy and then they're going to frame it, then I'll definitely set it. I usually use this final fixative that's got a matte finish, and I'll spray it like 2 to 3 times and just let it dry in between. You never spray this stuff inside unless you have really good ventilation, because it can get you sick. So definitely don't use that unless you have good ventilation. Let's see, what was the other question? I had another one. I think people also asked about like where I get photos from and that type of stuff. I get them from flea markets and from people's attics and from friends and from yard sales. Like, it's pretty easy to find old photographs for collage, and if you don't have like a flea market within 20 minutes of you, I'd be pretty surprised, unless you live in like a really rural area. But even then, you can go on like eBay and find old photographs, and Etsy, and find like packs of old photographs that people are selling specifically for collage, and they're not that expensive. So there's all sorts of options for getting photographs and stuff for collage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a drawing, because that's what it seems like people really want to see, which is fine. I'll talk a little bit while I'm doing it. I'm going to close the chat because it's hard to, and then I'm also going to see, I want to outline, because this pad is pretty big. As you can see, the whole pad is not seen in the video screen, so I kind of want to outline the edge of the screen best I can, so that I know where to stay within, so that you're seeing it on screen. Looks like this is on screen. This is hard to do. And then come down from here. Okay, it looks like if I stay within that bounds, I'll be okay. So I'm gonna be doing a mostly line drawing here with I'll start with the Pelican, but I'm going to use these other pens, maybe for some cross hatching and stuff, and some of these Uniball pens also. And I'll also be oops, I don't want to move this pad too much because it has to stay within the bounds. I want to get rid of that. Hopefully the lighting is okay. I wish I could see the chat still, but I don't know. Well, maybe I can on this screen. Let me see. Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to answer that question while I draw. Let's see if I can go back to where I was. Okay. Oops. All right. Someone asked about client work, and because my work is loose, because it's loose and client work has to be more planned out, how does that work, and how do I keep myself... I just like to make the paper a little bit messy before I even start. Roll this around on it a little bit. So people like to ask, you know what I'm talking about right now. So someone asked about client work, and I will admit that I definitely find it more challenging to work on client work because of the fact that it's more planned out, and I don't like to draw that way. I like to be as in the moment as possible. And so what I generally will do when I do like portraits or commissioned work, so most illustrators, like if you were to hire an illustrator as an art director, you would probably get sketches and a few rounds of sketches. They would show you some thumbnails of some ideas they had, and then from there they would the art director would choose which direction they prefer to go in, and then the artist would come back with some more refined sketches, and then they would take it from there. So there would be like a few different rounds of sketching and going back and forth with the client. Here's the problem with that method in my mind. The more you work a piece out like that, and you get input and you start overthinking things, I guess would be a good word to use, I feel like the less loose the work becomes, which I'm sure is why the person that asked this question asked it, right? Because like how do you stay loose when you're doing these different rounds and you're getting all this feedback, and then if they like a sketch from you and now you want to try to deliver a final piece, like how do you make sure that the final piece is as loose as that sketch? Because most people, if you've ever looked at their sketchbooks, for instance, you'll notice that their sketchbook work is usually a lot looser than their finished work, and I hate that. Like I want to see people's sketchbooks generally because of that. I like to see their loosest possible work, their most intuitive work, their most expressive work. And so the point of this story is that I personally don't like to give I didn't know that there was ink on my finger. You can see what happened. I'll figure it out later. Anyway, I don't like to give all sorts of different rounds. And so I'll generally talk with the client ahead of time and tell them that's not how I work. And so if you trust me, then we'll go ahead with this. And if they're willing to do that, then they're going to get a looser piece, and they're going to have less input in the final piece. And so it's kind of like, is that a risk they're willing to take? I have done pieces for people where I do provide sketches and I do let them have more say. I charge more for that, quite a bit more, and I let them know that it's not my favorite way to work. And a lot of times when I let people know that, they've been willing to switch it and give me more artistic license, I guess you would say. And so that's been nice to have that. But I don't know. I just hate the whole illustration process with sketches and going back and forth. And I know it's kind of like one of those necessary evils because most people want they want to say in what's going on. But with like a portrait, because most of the commissions I get are portrait, and with portraits it doesn't, like, how much say do you even really need as long as it resembles the person and the artist gets a feel for what you're looking for. I don't really feel like you need that many rounds of sketches, but it is definitely hard to keep that looseness when you're working for clients and you're doing too many rounds of sketching. I think I'm really annoyed about this, but I'm going to continue because I can't tell you how many times I've been annoyed with certain things and then just wanted to give up, and then I don't give up and I'm so happy I didn't. And then of course there are times that the opposite happens where I should have given up because that's like a pretty big disaster if I'm being honest, but I'm going to continue anyway. I actually can, so if I get rid of that, yeah, I was gonna say I think I can see your questions, but it doesn't work because when I do that, it covers. So I have like what is it called? Epoch camera view, and what that does is it takes the camera from my iPhone and it displays what's on the camera onto my MacBook screen, and then it allows it to be used for like live streaming like this. But if you cover that up with, so if I minimize that, or if I put like what do you call it, Google Chrome over that, then that's what you guys end up seeing on the live stream. You don't see the camera from my iPhone. You see the stupid my computer screen. I'm trying to think of I know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about copyright infringement because every few months I get bombarded with messages from people saying, hey, I saw your work in this spot, someone's selling it without your permission, and then I'll go flag the page and try to get the posters or whatever they're selling removed because they don't have my permission to use my artwork. But it happens pretty consistently, and it has for the last few years. Every few months it's the same thing where people are stealing my work and selling it without my permission. And it happened again this past weekend where about a couple dozen people sent me the link to like these Facebook ads of a company selling posters of an Anthony Bourdain piece I did. And it usually happens with that particular piece where that's the piece that people like to sell without my permission. And anyway, it's super frustrating, obviously, to have someone do that because they're stealing your work and they're making money off your work, not giving you a penny, not crediting you for it. At the same time, I've had so many people tell me like that they discovered my work through those type of things, and then like what happens is people put those advertisements up, and then like on Facebook and Instagram, and then in the comments, people that know that it's my work will comment like, hey, this is stolen, don't support this company. And because of that, I end up getting a bunch of new people that had never heard of me, and then now they see my work. So it's like this weird thing where I hate it and it's really awful, but I do gain new fans from it. So I don't really know how to feel about it, if I'm being honest. Like, I used to get way more angry than I get now. now I start to like see that it does have benefits, which is crazy because you'd think it would just be a total negative, right? But it's not. And so it's very strange, and I don't know. Wondering how you guys would feel about that. If someone was stealing your work, selling it without your permission, making money off of it, but it was also driving traffic to your Instagram, and you were getting new fans from it, and you also, because of that, you're making maybe extra sales of your own prints and your own work. So I don't know. I think the worst part is that some people don't know that it's not me. Like, they think maybe it's me that's selling my own work on these different weird sites, and they're selling really low quality crap, right? Like super low quality posters. They're like 1 star on the Better Business Bureau. People don't even get their stuff half the time that they order. And then if people end up thinking that I'm actually the one behind it and the one selling my own work through these pages, then that's terrible, right? It just looks bad on me. So I like to talk about it as often as I can to let people know, like, no, that's definitely not me. That's just someone stealing my work. So if you see those, please comment that it's my work and that it's stolen. Do me the favor. If they're not tagging me, then obviously they don't have my permission. And that's like a really good rule of thumb to go by. If you see artwork or prints being sold online and you can't even find the artist's name anywhere on the page, it's definitely stolen. Like, what artist would not put their own name and give themselves credit for their work, right? They don't put the artist's name for multiple reasons. One, they don't want the artist to get credit. Two, they don't want they want the artist not to find it if possible, right? And so some artists, maybe they Google themselves now and then just to check and make sure that no one's stealing their stuff. So if they put the artist's name, then it makes it easier for the artist to find it. Anyway, that's just a complaint that I have. And I've also seen like the other side. I've had people tell me that I should just be flattered, right? Which is so stupid. It's such a stupid thought that I should just be flattered that people are stealing my work and making money off of it. I don't know how this is coming out. It's coming out mediocre, I'd say. I think that, but what I'm trying to do here is show you that, well, wasn't my original goal, but it is now. What I'm trying to do is show you that if you make a mess of your drawing right at the very beginning, like I did, and that was a total accident. I didn't do that on purpose for sure. Anyway, if you do that, that doesn't mean you have to stop the drawing. You could just continue and see what happens. You never know. And there's also ways to cover things and recover. So like, definitely don't give up on something because of a small mistake that is possibly fixable, especially with mixed media work where you can cover it with collage or cover it with, whatever else you want to cover it with. I'm sure you guys are all getting tired of this quarantine. It's really, really getting old, isn't it? And everyone has opinions on, when they want to go back to work and the lockdown and what's going on. I mean, I'm trying to, let's see, how can I say this? I wish things were a little bit more suggested rather than mandated, right? Like, we suggest that you have gatherings this size and not more, or we suggest you stay in and not go for walks. Although I think obviously we can go outside for walks, and I understand too that the downside is that people don't always listen to suggestions. It's a mess. I've like kind of used to do cross hatching all the time, and then I stopped doing it for a while, and now I'm trying to get back into it because I do like it. I started using more like vine and charcoal and stuff for shading rather than cross hatching, and now I kind of like to do a mixture. My work kind of is ever evolving, and I'm always trying out new things and then coming back around to things I used to use. So I like to experiment. I think that's what makes art fun, is experimenting rather than always using the same stuff and always doing the same thing. I don't get when people, because there's definitely people out there that are like only watercolor artists or only pen and ink artists, and I just, no thank you. That's not how I'm going to work. I can't stand being limited. I just made a mess. Let's see. What was I talking about? It's still on the page, right? Oh, I was talking about the quarantine. Yeah, I just wish it was a little bit more of a suggestion than a mandate, and no fun to lose all of your freedoms and rights, and at the same time you want people to be safe. You don't want people to get sick, and that's what happens. Not everyone listens, right? And so they kind of have to do that. I get it. I'm trying to do something here, like draw in a weird angle with my hand so it's not in the way of the drawing, but it's kind of challenging to do that. Put like something like this here. But my wife and I have been going for walks pretty much daily. We have a nice walk right along the ocean near us, and so we're allowed to go outside obviously for walks and stuff like that, but it would be nice to be able to do other things than just that. It's getting really old being cooped up, and I'm not the only one obviously that thinks that. I'd be curious to see what you guys are all doing for fun during the, other than art, during the lockdown. This is like kind of dry. I was going to get another one. What's everyone doing for fun? In the comments, maybe you could write that, and then I can respond to them later. Or you guys can respond to each other too in the live stream comments, or on the YouTube video comments in general. Or on my Instagram is cool too. But I'm definitely open to suggestions on what you've been doing, puzzles, or... Oh, we've also been doing crosswords, which I don't usually enjoy, but when you're really bored, you'll do anything. And my wife picked up a couple of crossword books at the local CVS, and she bought 2 of the same exact book so that we could each have one, and then we do races. We like pick one of the puzzles and we see who can get it done first. And she pretty much beats me 9 out of 10 times. That's not my strength, as you probably noticed when I was showing you guys the different tools, I probably mispronounced like half of them. Those pencils, Sanguine, sanguine, I guess. Like, I'm sure that's not how you pronounce it, but that's just how I pronounce it, because I don't know any different. I'm like rambling on and on. I thought it would be cool to put like a window in the back of this with maybe like a moon. As you can see, that's what I've done. I don't know. See, I got this smudge for the eyebrow, and it doesn't even look that bad. It kind of looks, not intentional, but it fits the piece in a way. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. This is kind of off. So I live in Maine, and the governor of Maine yesterday, or 2 days ago, declared a national not a national emergency, obviously. They declared the state of emergency should extend till May 15th, and originally it was supposed to end April 15th. But I think they can only declare it 30 days at a time. And so I don't really know what exactly that means. I know that there's, hotels, restaurants, a lot of things are mandated to be closed, basically anything that's non-essential. And then, unfortunately, non-essential is different for many people, right? So, liquor stores in some states are open, right? That's essential. And then people are upset because they can't go to their church. And to them, that's essential, right? So if you're a person of faith, then your Bible studies, your church is essential. And so thankfully, there's Zoom and things like that, so people can still meet together. I might see if I can add like a photograph to this. This is by no means done, but I don't know. It's coming along. I'm going to go back to the stream over here, and I'll see if you guys have written anything about any questions or about what you've been doing for fun. Sanguine. Oh, pronounce sanguine, like penguin. Oh, okay. Okay, so somebody at iPhone Central, they asked about references and portraits. Sometimes what I'll do when I'm doing like a drawing like this, which this is obviously not a portrait of anybody, this is like something that's from my head. But sometimes I'll look at like eyes from one person and a nose from a different person, and like just make my own person based on reference points from different things. This is not that. This is just kind of from my head. I did sketch something like this out yesterday, just so I had kind of an idea of what I wanted to draw today. So this was from my head from yesterday more than it is from right now. And I don't always do that, but on a live stream, I feel like I need some type of direction, or else it could be a disaster. It also might not be a disaster, but I just don't want to take that chance on a live stream. See, this is one of the pencils I was talking about, one of those Windsor Newton pencils, and this is like a great pencil. It's nice and dark, so I go over sometimes some of the pen where I want to do maybe some shading or smudging or whatever. I don't know. This week coming up, I'm working on an outline for a book publisher that's going to be delivered to them, but it has to be delivered to them by Wednesday to look at. And so I don't know if I'm going to be doing a live stream next week, because I don't know if I'll have time to prepare anything, because I'm going to be so busy trying to get this book outline done. If I do one, it's going to be last minute, and it'll still be the same time. It'll be at noon next Thursday. But it might be just kind of last minute, and I might just end up, if I do one, just putting the camera on and drawing and talking. And what I'll do if I do that, I'll leave the stream open and I'll use my iPad for it so I can see, and that way I can talk about what you want me to talk about. I'll be able to read your suggestions as we go. I haven't been able to do that today. So that's what I'll do next Thursday if I'm able to. I'm not going to make 100% promise. It's just because I just don't know how busy I'm going to be with that. I will do one 2 weeks from today for 100% sure, and I'll try to think of something really cool to do that's more of a tutorial, so that I can like talk through it and work with you guys and come up with a cool project that we can all do together. And so I think I might just take next week off just so that I have 2 weeks just to prepare something really cool. And so I hope that's okay. I'm sorry that I couldn't do something next week, but just with the scheduling, I think it would be hard. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this and you were able to see some of the tools that I use, and I talked a little bit about working with clients, which is fun. It's just hard to take that, the looseness of sketching and then translate that into working with a client if they micromanage you. And so I basically just won't work with a client if I know they're going to micromanage me. It has to be at least a good amount of trust, or else it's just not going to work. I know some illustrators are in a position where the work is they're not getting as much work as they want, and so they do end up having to work with clients like that because they take what work they can get. And I've been in that position before, and it's not fun. So to be able to turn down work sometimes is a luxury, and I understand that, and I'm thankful to be in that position. And if you're not, and if you do have to take work that you're going to be micromanaged and you're not going to have that freedom, I would just charge appropriately, because you're not going to enjoy creating a piece like that nearly as much as you would with someone that just trusted you and gave you just a basic guide to go, And it's also, you don't want those clients that they don't give you hardly any guidance either, and so you don't really know if you're going to make them happy because they haven't given you enough information. You kind of want a nice mix of someone that tells you what they want and then leaves you alone and trusts that you'll be able to take the concept or the idea and do something cool with it. So anyway, hope that you guys stay safe and have a nice week, and maybe I'll see you next week, if not 2 weeks for sure. All right, have a good day, guys.